Right, the weather has finally settled down a bit. The water temperature is lovely and warm, which means it's time to fish some meat mush, one of my absolute favourite ways of fishing. When them fish, they've sort of clicked off a little bit of just meat on its own, which is very, 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 very popular here at Partridge in the early season. Now, for whatever reason, once they've spawned or something, once the weather changes a little bit, gets a bit warmer, for some reason they need something else, just to burst them into life, to kick the peg off nice and quick. You seem to need traps instead, and that is where today's subject for catching beautiful F1s, just like that one, a fishing meat mush, comes into it. It is such a lovely, lovely, cheap, easy, simple method where you can literally just fish one bait throughout the entire session and make it last, and really, really focus on how the method's behaving, making it work. It's just such an easy way of fishing, and nice and cheap as well. So that is what today's video is going to be all about. Fishing venues like this. I mean, nice intimate venues where you're catching fish of all sizes. I mean, just because we're fishing meat, it doesn't mean we're just fishing for great big wobbly carp. I'm going to fish it today in a lovely way that catches simply everything and gives you a nice, cheap, easy day's fishing. So without further ado, on with the show. Right, baity bit, and it couldn't be more simple. It is such an easy day's fishing, but we've got to get it right. You know, it'd be so easy to just literally mush up a load of meat and feed it, but it doesn't go in right. You know what I mean? You tend to have a very buoyant, floaty, moody bait. I mean, unless you're fishing it in this, we've got to add a little bit of ground bait to it. So I'm going to show you exactly what I do to create me little mix that I have. So, meat first, the Z Simple bit, and I've done far too much meat for today. I've done 2 tins, I only needed 1. But what I'm going to do, you can see it's already there, cubed up for me 6mm meat, what I'm going to use if I want a loose feed or for me hook bait as well. So literally I'm just going to do, I ain't going to do much, I'm going to do that much. And that's going to be my hook bait. We're not going to catch that many. I'd rather have it cubed up. I mean, if you want, you could rag it round the riddle just to push it through. You could slice it, push through, whatever. Just cube makes it nice little bits, unless you're really posh and you've got one of them sausage maker things that all the southern lads have. But what I'm going to do there is just push it through me riddle. I'm not going to do all of it because you lot will have to watch me for 20 minutes if I do. I'm going to whiz it through riddle, and what we end up with is a lovely little fine mix that you could feed, but it's just not quite right. I want it to go down to the bottom a bit better than that. So by pushing it through, nearly there, one more sec. That'll do. Just going to scrape that off the bottom there because there's loads of goodness at the bottom. And that is all I'm after. Yeah, me meat mush ready to go. That's going to go straight into my tub. Probably got, what, half a pint there, which is ample for how long we're going to be fishing for. Next one I need, I really need some ground bait in it. What ground bait does, helps it get to the bottom, and if anything, it holds it together a little bit better as well. Just binds it and makes you be able to create that trap on the bottom, which is so important, but also brings the added attraction in. That at the minute it's just missing. The days have gone where you can just feed meat. They need a little bit more stuff going on at this time of year. Once it gets a little bit warmer, for some reason they want a bit more mush in the water, you know what I mean? A bit more mushy meat, a bit more ground bait. So all I've mixed up is Match Method. Yeah, I've mixed up literally a pint of Match Method, sealed it up, all good to go, but that is plenty for a session. And I've mixed it really dry to begin with. Yeah, it's only just holdable in a ball. Yeah, I don't want it over wetted because I'm going to do that once I've mixed my meat. So I've got my meat there ready to go. All I'm going to add is 1 handful. I want about 30% ground bait, I'm going to say. Yeah, about 30% ground bait. So if I add that to that, give it a whiz. And I want a little bit more ground bait than that. So I do want it still very meaty. Just going to add a bit more, let's say 40% ground bait we're going to go with. And there, if we wanted, we could feed that. Yeah, I could feed it nice little balls like that would get to the bottom. What I will say is when it comes to choosing your ground bait, in this case I've gone with my Match Method, I don't want a crushed expander base ground bait. I find them a little bit too bitty and they don't bind enough to make that little trap. I mean, you want something a bit more oily in it. That's why we go with a Match Method. But as you can see, that's pretty much done there, basic. But what I want to do next is over wet it. I want a nice, stodgy, mushy cloud, as the name suggests. So I'm going to add a load of water to that. Stodgy him up nice and slow. So because the ground bait's already mixed, I'm not putting it in dry. It's not going to take on any more water. It's just going to go stodgy. It's not going to dry out. So you can see there, just by overwetting it to almost make a paste, there I have my lovely little mushy ball of mostly meat, a little bit of ground bait that gets right to the bottom, but with all them attractions of the ground bait and the mush meat together. So simple as that. Let's get in the box. Let's catch some fish. Right, bait all prepped. As you've seen, it doesn't get any more simple. Look at my bait tray. It's even more simple than my usual pellet-based bait tray. I've literally got the meat for loose feeding to put it on the hook and me mushy meat. The amount I've done there, what have I got? Pint and a half, that'll literally last me. I'll probably fish all session with that. It is such an easy, simple way of fishing, as long as they're eating it. Right, let's not mess about, let's go for it. First thing I want to talk about is depth. That is the key thing with fishing this. Because you're feeding a stodgy, soft sort of bait, obviously the shallower water you can get it to work in, the better. I mean, the shallower you can feed it, the tighter trap it is going to keep. For me, what do I want? I want to feed it from anything from 10 or 12 inches, if that's what I need to fish in, down to what? I'm going to say 3 foot. 3 foot's pushing it. I mean, 2.5 foot would be the sexy depth, which is exactly what we got today pretty much. But yeah, 3 foot's probably exceeding it. It's that sort of slopey area where it excels for me, be it on this side of the canal or over there, which is where we're going to fish it today. Rig-wise, couldn't be more simple. You need to think about, oh, hello to pigeons. Rig-wise, you need to keep things really, really simple. You're setting traps. So the standard sort of rigs that you'd use for soft pellet fishing, I mean, soft or hard pellet fishing, whenever you're putting a very accurate trap in this case, I've got, what have I got? I've got 24, 20, nearly 27 inches. I've got a 0.2 float that takes 4 number 12s and a fine tuner. I mean, really, really condensed, simple. It doesn't get easier than that. I mean, but it keeps it where it is. I don't want any fannying about it, falling through the water rigs. I want a rig that pretty much keeps it over me trap. But I've got it slightly spread out today because I've not got millions of fish. Just an odd fish is coming into my bag so I can get away with it. Hooks, lines, all of that, it needs to be for your venue, doesn't it? I mean, suit your lines to the venue. Today I've got 016 to 012 with a 16 hook on. That's obviously, I'm not going to go into that. That needs to be right for your venue. But we're going to get straight into it. We're not going to mess about. So I plumbed up and I found me one spot. Yeah, today, because I was here at the weekend, I know 30 inches was phenomenal. That was the depth I caught in last week up on peg 73. So I've literally nearly found that today. Yeah, I couldn't find 30 inches. It was a bit too slopey. So I found somewhere that's relatively flat. Again, it's not a bait that you want to feed on too much of a slope because it's not going to stay there. I want to be able to have a nice bit of a flat sort of area that I can stick my bait in and it is good to go. And I'm literally going to impale there a nice little 6mm Cuban meat, absolutely spot on for the size fish we're going to catch. And I'm going to start off with this size pot, yeah, our medium pot. So I'm not going to give it a full one, I'm just going to give it a lump. And you can see I've got my lump there. I mean, it's not too wet, it's not leaving anything on my hands hardly, it's condensing itself nice and tight. And I can just pop that in, stick it in my pot, he's good to go. Not a full pot, just half to kick off with, because that's all I'm trying to create. On the bottom, oh, I've dropped him, is that little nice little trap that's going to look very similar to that once it gets there. I mean, it's just going to spread out slightly on the bottom, see about that sort of size, and I'm going to present my meat right over the top of it. I feel like there's lots of innuendos in this video, but I know a certain individual I know will be giggling quite a lot while talking about meat. Anyway, let's crack on. So, meat's good to go. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm doing. And what I was on about, it's that same mentality of fishing micros and expanders. It is exactly the same thing. You are just setting lovely little traps, but they have that meaty element of attraction to them, which without a doubt, for some reason, once they've had a spawn, or even before they've had a spawn in partridge's case, they are massively, massively tuned into the owl meat. Yeah, there's one top in there. We'll catch him in a minute. So forget about my rig to start with, setting me trap. So I've not got to be too careful with it. See that lovely little lump comes out? And I'm going to lift my rig, plonk him over the top of it. It is good to go. I mean, really, really simple, lovely way of fishing. But because my bait is so condensed, it is really, really easy to keep control of my peg. Because I know what's going in. I know that when a fish comes over that pile, because it is so tight and the bait's all clinging together, because I've got the ground bait added to the meat, it maintains that. It's a lump of paste in it pretty much. But it's a very, very condensed tight pile that once a fish has been in the peg and had a suck at it, it has gone. Yeah, there is pretty much no bait left, particularly now, particularly first and second cast. There is no bait whatsoever, or third cast in this case. There's no bait left once I've missed an indication. I mean, like that fish has came in, ate the lot, sucked my meat in. I'm really, really happy now that I've caught this fish and I can go back in and there's going to be 90% of everything's going to have gone. There's going to be very, very little bait left on the bottom. The rollers aren't set up the best today, I must admit. You see how quick that was. Look at him, he's a beautiful little carpy. We love them. And this is what I'm on about. By fishing it delicately, with little tiny, he's like double hooked. How'd you get that where you hook him in the top and bottom lip? That's weird, isn't it? It's because it's pinged over, but he was 10 out of 10 at one point. You can see fish like that, what's he? 10 ounce. I mean, meat's normally associated with catching just big fish. It's not about that. By fishing it in this way, it makes it so versatile, which so much of my fishing's about. At venues like this, where you've got so many different stamps and strains of fish, you want a bait that can catch simply everything. Same again, lovely little lump, not a full pot, just that. It's nothing, is it? What's that? Like an 11mm pellet sort of size lump. Hardly anything. Squash him into your pot so he doesn't come out, and just repeat the process. It's as simple as that. There's no easier way of fishing, is there? So what I could do if I wanted is I could rotate a couple of areas as well. Often I'll pick two lines left and right, or maybe I'll have one in the edge and one across, fishing exactly the same sort of depths. And it's a lovely way of just feeding it before you go out, or before you go onto one line, and you can drop onto the other line. A minute later, if it's a trickier day and you need to rotate lines, give that a little whack. Beautifully dropped in that. See, I don't know if you lot can see it with the camera as well. When that goes in, there is very, very little cloud or anything coming off it. I mean, it's mixed in a way that there's very little, it's not sloppy. I mean, if I create a slop, I'm going to create a cloud. Yeah, that's the last thing that I want to do. I just want to have that solid lump go all the way to the bottom immediately. I don't want hardly any, I'm not going to call it attraction, but I don't hardly any bits coming off it on the descent. Yeah, I want that little lump on the bottom. But because it's not just ground bait or just meat, oh mate, he's even better. Look at him. That's like prettiest carp in partridge, isn't it? Oh, look at him. That's like me. Beautiful, Jake. A lot smaller, but beautiful. Look at him. They're the babies that we want. Just how good is that? Just catching everything. They tend to live, these little ones like that at the minute, are living on the weed beds. So the only other thing that I might do is have another rig in a different depth, because this venue in particular is very susceptible to different stamps of fish being in different depths. So at the minute, what we're there, 2.5 foot on a different peg. I may have even put a rig right in the back, maybe in the mud line or something, where I might get sort of like 16 inches. It'd be worth putting another line in that just to see if the stamp increases, but we're still massively early in the session. I wouldn't be looking too much into it yet after just a couple of fish. So maybe half an hour into it, if I'd not hooked any of the better fish, that's when I'd be thinking about changing my depth slightly. See, look at that, same again, right in. And because it's so stodgy, because it is going straight down in that lovely solid lump, what you tend to find is that your line bites are fairly minimal. I mean, as long as you're not fishing it in too deeper water, it tends to keep the fish on the bottom in a lovely way. I mean, they've got no particles to chase after. They've just got that solid lump to home in on, go straight down on the bottom, where they're going to find my hook bait. And it does make it really easy, which is perfect in situations like this where you're fishing against weed beds, which you so often are at this time of year, because the fish don't want to be on the bottom. I mean, they're not sat on the bottom underneath that weed bed, they're sat half depth or just under the surface even. So by any loose fed type bait, if I want to fish pellets or casters or whatever else, they're very susceptible to coming up, which is great if you've got to catch a load shallow. But if they don't want to do that either, and you need to catch them on the bottom, particle type baits, you're going to suffer a lot with liners, foul hookers, just inconsistency. It's just going to be a bit of a pain. Don't know if I had a bite then. I wasn't even watching. I was looking at a carp swimming across there. Well, here's my pile, right in, all good. And I just want to pay attention now to how many little indications I get. If I have half a dozen indications, just movements on my float that aren't bites and don't get a bite, and then it quietens off, very, very quickly I'll come back and feed again. So there's no point sitting there waiting to get a bite. You've only fed such a tiny amount of bait. I mean, we've seen it a million times on the underwater stuff that we've done. That was a proper bite that then. I'd be very close to coming back and feeding again. But because it's so early in the session, I'll just give it one more drop in and see what they do. But what I was saying, yeah, them underwater ones you've seen, that first fish comes in and eats a lot. The first one that comes over that pile, if it homes in on it, it has all gone in one. So you can't assume that you're fishing over any bait. You've just literally, you've attracted them into the area, but there's nothing there for them to eat. So I'm just going to give this literally 5 or 10 more seconds. I'm going to whiz back and I'll actually get a bite quicker by feeding again than what I would if I were to sit there and wait, which does make sense to me. I always think that if your hook bait's there and there's fish, you think you get a bite quick, but for whatever reason, it never works like that with anything. You always have to have that pile for them to home in on again. It almost gets them excited again, doesn't it? They have the little period of competition when your bait first goes in. Your bait all right? Yeah, all good. Where the competition is that slight bit higher than when all the bait's gone. When they just become a little bit more curious, they watch things a little bit more, and they're a bit harder to catch. So I want that competition of that bait whizzing in. They probably go and sit in the weed bed, don't they? They probably whiz to the weed bed and then come back out as soon as I feed me bait, have a little chew and then move back. Because these ones here are very, very used to getting fished for. They know the crack. So forget about my rig, that routine of shipping out, put my bait in, let it go down, lovely. Hold your rig above it, plonk it in. Let's see how quick they're homing in on that. I mean, that ball's just hitting the bottom now. Let's see how many seconds it takes. See how it's that wiggle straight away then? Bit of an indication. Instantly they're coming in on that ball. So if that's a decent fish, not a tiny little one, that could have gone already. It is that frightening how quickly they can clear it out. But we just have to be really, really proactive, busy, keep on shipping, keep on replacing your pile as soon as you think it's gone. Once the trap's upset, you're wasting your time thinking you get a bite without it. And as you can see there, we got a bite nice and quick. What was that? Probably 20 seconds after feeding. You just have to be really, really busy. But the busier you are, as long as you're not feeding on top of bait that's still there and hasn't been eaten, the quicker you can almost come back, feed again, feed again, feed again. You're building your peg and you're creating that competition just by fishing it. You've not got to worry about loose feeding. So they're getting a little bit bigger. That's back to an F1 then. Yeah, you're really being busy. You're not worrying about loose feeding to make anything happen. Let's get him out. Come here. You always have that little hook on the fin that catches on it, doesn't it? So I'm going to do it once more for you lovely lot. We're going to whiz in. I should have put some water on my meat. My meat's going a bit dry. My meat's drying out. Andy'd be laughing at that. Same again, so not a full pot, just a little bit. And you can see why that bait, I mean, what's in there? Pint and a half, maybe 2 pints at the most. You are literally barely going to get through all that in 5 hours fishing. I mean, there's probably 150 feeds in there, pretty much, so you've got a lot of time. And if you've done it 150 times, caught 150 fish, you've won the match pretty much in most cases. So once more, like I said, set me trap. Just watch again for that no cloud. It literally goes in with nothing coming off it whatsoever, just to get it to the bottom to prevent them liners. Like I say, it's not fast and furious, but it's lovely controlled, and you're probably going to put on a peg with a few bigger fish in, you're looking at 10 to 15 fish an hour, which you are absolutely flying doing that, because it's nice and consistent all the way through the day often because of the way you're feeding. I don't know if that was a carp in the peg then. And it's just a case of putting your trap in, coming back with a fish. If you can rinse and repeat that endlessly all day, it is quite simply the easiest possible match you can ever think of. And you're not having to swap race, you're not having to come up and down. You just fish that one area, letting it build, letting that competition increase. And hopefully as the day progresses, In this case, particularly in partridge's case, you tend to find that the stamper fish increases hour by hour by hour, and you finish with, if you're lucky and you're on the right stamper fish or a carpy peg, you'll end up with a few right creatures rocking up later in the session. Please come out, steady pressure, see if he comes out. Normally do. Oh no, that one's pinged off, but we're going to carry on. I'm going to put a new hook clamp on him and I'm going to carry on with the session and hopefully catch a few. But it is as simple as that. I mean, mushy meat fishing doesn't have to be complicated. It's just a case of getting your mix right. So definitely that tip of not using crushed expander based ground bait as well, just to ensure you have that lovely, what's the word, inert in it. I want a really inert mix that just creates that pile, and as long as you concentrate on replacing that pile as soon as you think it's been disturbed, it will make a massive difference and catch you so many more fish. So that's the tip for now. It's nice and warm. Get on the mushy meat.